Here's a tactic for being able to increase your pronunciation and fluency that might make you feel kind of uncomfortable, especially if you're doing it around other people. But I found it kind of helps, and it's really based on the concept of it's how babies learn how to pronounce their mother tongue, their native language, from a young age. You'll notice that a baby, when they're starting to develop language, we all did it. When you're a little baby, you start to like make goo goo gaga sounds, like where you're just copying your parents and the way that they talk, because you have no idea what they're saying, but you're kind of picking up on the sounds of the language. And I haven't studied this in depth, but I'm assuming that maybe a baby who's growing up in a household that speaks Arabic makes different sounds than a baby who's growing up in a household speaking Chinese. Like the Chinese baby is going to be starting to make sounds with his mouth that sound more like his parents' Chinese than a baby born in maybe Jordan or something, whose parents are speaking Arabic. So that's what I would advise you do when you're starting to learn a foreign language. Is the very first thing, before you start learning grammar, before you start learning any words, I think if you want to go ahead and study a language, the best thing to do would be to put on some audio of a native speaker in that language. Maybe they're talking slow, maybe they're talking fast, but just play it in the background. And this is the part that'll make you uncomfortable, especially if other people are around. But try to mimic their sounds. Try to sound like how they sound. And you're not going to be enunciating it correctly. Like if I'm mimicking a sentence in English, I like to run, but I'm not a native English speaker. If I listen to me saying it, I like to run, I might say, I like to run. Like you're not going to enunciate it properly, because if you're just getting started, you don't know the sounds of the language, so you're not able to use as much precision. But you're going to be getting like that kind of sounds, like you're going to be moving your mouth in the right way and with the right cadence, because you can pick up on the cadence easier than you would think. And also the sounds of the language, you'll start to pick up on those. So anyone who's starting in a language, it's really important that you develop the correct pronunciation early on, because once you have studied for a while, you start to ingrain in your brain, you start to solidify your pronunciations and the way you say things. And if from the beginning it doesn't sound enough like a native speaker, if you're not mimicking enough, you're still trying to use your native mother tongue to pronounce these words. So for example, I am a native English speaker, and I've heard a lot of Americans pronounce the Chinese cities of like Shanghai or Beijing, and I've heard them pronounce it ever since I'm a kid. And as an American, how would you say Shanghai? You would say Shanghai, right? So someone who's just getting started learning Chinese, they will be inclined to see the letters on the page, S-H-A-N-G-H-A-I, and they will try to find the equivalent in English to pronounce those. So someone who has not mimicked how it actually is pronounced and listened to a native speaker pronounce it enough, even though they hear their teacher or hear their instructor say it is Shanghai, but if they develop the poor habit of saying Shanghai, maybe even they say the tone's right, they say Shanghai, like it kind of is halfway there, but they're still pronouncing it on the basis of their mother tongue, on English. But if from the very beginning you don't even know what you're saying at all, you're just completely mimicking them, and maybe recording yourself doing the mimicking to see how you sound, to see if it sounds like it has the same vibe, kind of, to see if it has the same feel to it that your native language or that your target language has. If it sounds like you put it on, someone could tell you're mimicking the target language. Like you've seen videos maybe of people who talk in English. I remember seeing one. I think it's a guy in the Middle East. I forget what country or where, but he's saying English, but it doesn't actually have any meaning. He's just like saying gibberish words, but it sounds like English. And if you're able to do something like that, pretend you want to study Mandarin Chinese, if you're able to do something like that where you're saying it and it sounds like it's Chinese, even if it's gibberish, but then you actually start adding in the words and you start adding in the pronunciation and the grammar, if you start adding everything in after you're already able to sound like a Chinese speaker, then you're going to be way better off than starting to develop the grammar, starting to develop the vocab, but pronouncing it incorrectly. If you get off on the wrong foot with that, it's a lot harder to change. I think I was maybe a little bit like that when I started learning Chinese. I was maybe more pronouncing it from an English speaker background, and I didn't use this tactic. So people who are just getting started, my words of advice would be to do this, because I just want to help you guys out so that you don't go down the same path as me. And I think I have improved a lot. I think my pronunciation now sounds a lot closer to how it's supposed to, but I still don't think I'm 100% of the way there. Like, I think if a Chinese person hears me speak, they're gonna think, yeah, he speaks good Mandarin, but I can tell he's a foreigner, or I can tell there's something off. It's not that I say this stuff wrong per se. I could say all the tones right. It's just how it flows off my tongue is maybe it has a little bit of a hint of foreign accent. Just like how someone could speak super fluent English, but you can just tell, like, it sounds fluent, they say it with good speed, there's nothing technically wrong with it, it's just it has like a little flair to it that doesn't necessarily sound how a native speaker would say it. So, and it's hard to correct that. You have to put a lot more effort to fixing old habits than it is to just develop good habits from the beginning. So everyone who's getting started with the language, do exactly what I said. When you're in the car, if you're embarrassed to do this in front of your family or do this in front of your friends, do it in the car when you're alone. If you don't have a car, then maybe try to find a place that doesn't have any people. If you're super embarrassed, put in some headphones, listen to the language, and just make complete nonsense sounds where you're mimicking what the person is saying. And do this for a little while before you jump into trying to learn the grammar and trying to learn the concepts, because you will not regret it. And this is how babies learn languages. So this is how babies make the sounds correctly. And this is how you develop a more native pronunciation. So go ahead and do that. Don't slack off. Don't be embarrassed. Just get it done, and then you'll have a better pronunciation forever.